Let's get going. Let's get started. We're going to kind of pick up where we left off, which was with the big news of the Trump Zelensky melee in the Oval Office. So here is Volodymyr Zelensky doing some damage control on Fox News, saying he thinks he can repair his relationship with Trump. Let's take a listen to this.
Yeah. Do you think your relationship with Donald Trump, President Trump, after today, can be salvaged?
Can be
salvage? What that mean? What that word mean? Salvage? What he's saying?
Yes, of course, because it's relations more than two presidents. It's the historical relations, strong relations between our people, and that's why I always began with to thank your people from our people, and this is the most important. And of course, thankful to President and of course to Congress, but first of all to your people. Your people helped to save our people. People, the first. Human rights, the first. This is very, very important. And we are thankful and sorry for this. I mean, we wanted very much to have only strong relations, and I very count that we will have it.
Oh, this poor dumb bastard. You know, when he says this is a friendship between our people, your people, the United States doesn't care about your people. If the United States cared about your people, they'd have made a deal to save your people from slaughter. The United States doesn't care about your people. NATO doesn't care about your people. I don't even know if you care about your people at this point. I don't know what you're thinking at this point. But it's just so it's a very, very tragic thing. It's a very horrible crime that was perpetrated here, that this was allowed to happen. And that this guy even now is saying, hey, this is about, aren't we friends? No, we were never friends. We were never friends.
And,
the United States never viewed you as a friend. You were cannon fodder. You were pawns in an imperial game.
I just want President Trump to know that whenever I get in plane, it is thoroughly checked all over. So don't try anything.
Don't try anything. Yes, exactly. Well, we'll see if this worked or not. Trump considers ending all aid to Ukraine. So shout out to Kyle Anzalone and thegreatantiwar.com for aggregating some recent reports here. After a disastrous meeting for Zelensky, Kyiv is now at risk of losing the support of its most crucial backer. The White House is considering ending all aid transfers, including weapons, to Ukraine after an Oval Office press conference turned into an argument between President Donald Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, and Ukrainian President Zelensky. According to the Washington Post, the Trump administration is considering ending all ongoing shipments of military aid to Ukraine in response to President Volodymyr Zelensky's remarks in the Oval Office on Friday and his perceived intransigence in the peace process. If the aid is terminated, that's a great word, intransigence. I don't use that enough. I should put that in the rotation. That really makes you sound like you know what you're talking about.
It does.
It's a good word. If the aid is terminated, Ukraine would not receive billions of dollars in weapons from the U.S., including missiles and ammunition that was approved through the Presidential Drawdown Authority. The New York Times reported that weapons deliveries to Ukraine have, quote, slowed to a trickle even before Friday's heated exchange. However, Trump is now considering cutting off support to Kyiv, other support to Kyiv. The president might decide to end even the indirect support being provided by the U.S., the outlet explained, which includes other types of military financing, intelligence sharing, training for Ukrainian troops and pilots, and hosting a call center that manages international aid at U.S. military base in Germany. Following the White House clash between Trump, Vance, and Zelensky, NBC News reported the administration was also cutting non-military aid to Ukraine. Secretary of State Marco Rubio ended the Ukraine Energy Security Project, which provides Kyiv with hundreds of millions of dollars to attempt to repair the country's energy grid. Now, here is Mike Waltz, the national security advisor. Michael Tracy tweets this out. Says an irony of that meeting was that they were on the cusp of formalizing Ukraine as sort of a U.S. protectorship with continued U.S. military aid and a framework for deployment of NATO troops, all of which are major U.S. commitments under the circumstances, but it wasn't enough for Zelensky. So here is Mike Waltz on the meeting.
just talk to something very quickly that this was some kind of ambush. Right. That is absolutely and categorically false. We had a beautiful setting in the East Room ready for both leaders to sign that would have bound the United States and Ukraine together economically for a generation, for critical minerals that we need, economic investment that they need. And that would have been in the heels, Charlie, of having the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, who says he's ready to put boots on the ground, the president of France, Macron, who's ready to put boots on the ground, NATO Secretary General that the president had just spoke to about
this guy needs to get a DNA test because I'm betting RFK Jr. owes him some money.
Yeah, right, exactly.
broader
Yeah,
security guarantees. So this really could have been and should have been a positive moment for Ukraine. And then we go to further negotiating with the Russians, bring this war to an end, and move the world forward and stop the death and destruction. But instead, what became clear, and I think what has the president so frustrated and frankly angry, is that it's not clear that Zelensky truly wants to stop the fighting. And he came in, even though he was warned not to, determined to litigate all of that in front of the entire world.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like an accurate take to me, I have to say. Like, I think it's going to be harder than it seems to actually bring this war to a close, and I'm still not really convinced that Donald Trump knows how to do that. But, yeah, I mean, it certainly seems that Trump's goal was to get a ceasefire and that Zelensky is just not interested in that. It really seems like Zelensky was taken for a ride by people who are much smarter than him. And he still has not snapped back into reality and accepted that, look, your people put up a fight, and it's horrible, all this death, and it's horrible to think that it was all in vain. But at a certain point, you just have to cut your losses, which is why what Trump said in the Oval Office, he just looked him right in the eye and said, "You're not winning this. You're not winning this." Like, I feel like Trump was the first and only person
he
to
went
ever
at the
tell him
elephant
that.
in the room.
Right. Like who else has ever told him that? Who else would ever tell him that? And it just seems like he does not believe that.
With Zelensky, at best, this is like if you made Jimmy Kimmel your president and put him in a war situation. He's a fucking comedian. He's a TV star. He has no idea what he's doing. He had no concept of who or what he was dealing with. Now, on the darker side, I have to check this, but it was tweeted out by a source I trust. According to what I've seen, 29% of what was considered Ukraine at the collapse of the Soviet Union, the way they drew the lines, 29% of the country is Russian speaking. He banned the Russian Orthodox Church. He banned Russian newspapers in the country. He banned Russian language media. 29% of your country speaks Russian. Well, you're going to have problems. Not to mention, Gray Zone has done a lot of reporting on the way after the ceasefire. They continued to attack the Russian-speaking provinces in the east. These are things that, the shit libs who are flooding social media right now with these Ukraine flags. They have no idea, man. They have no idea. I had a shit lib who got very angry about me tweeting out about Ukrainian Nazis yesterday. Do you have any proof of this? Don't share screenshots, share links. Hang on, motherfucker. So you feel you're informed enough to be commenting on this and you didn't even know about that?
You didn't even know that?
Didn't even know. Well, which makes sense. Because how would you know? If you just watch CNN and think that's telling you anything worth hearing, why would you know about that? You think they put that on CNN?
Well, it's funny you say that because once upon a time, they actually did print that in the New York Times. Back in 2018, Hakeem Jeffries and a few other Democrats signed on to a letter saying, hey, we got to watch out. There's a Nazi problem in Ukraine. And then, of course, that was all memory hold once the war started. But, to your point earlier, I always thought I was a quarter Russian because my grandmother on my father's side of the family always called herself Russian. It wasn't until this war that I realized I'm actually technically a quarter Ukrainian because my grandparents, yeah, they're ethnic Russians and they spoke Russian, her family, but they were from those eastern sections that are part of Ukraine. So actually, in terms of like modern borders, well, I guess for now, modern borders, I'm actually a quarter Ukrainian. I didn't even know that because my grandmother always considered herself to be Russian, and we always thought that. We never even interrogated that at all. They spoke Russian, so I figured, yeah, I guess they're Russian.
Well, I mean, in this region, they have a very long history, and at the end of the Cold War, they kind of did what they did with the Middle East. They drew a line around this area that didn't necessarily go together. Like Crimea, again, I have to look at this. I don't want to state this as a fact, but I believe it's majority Russian speaking there. So what's the rationale that it belongs to Ukraine categorically? Because that was the line they drew at the end of the Cold War. Like, why is that by definition Ukrainian territory? That's it seemed very much like the Middle East, very much like countries like Iraq that were Western inventions. They just kind of squeezed all these people in together without considering they're not really the same people.
Right.
Please clap.